Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this top, hacking one of my favorite patterns that I got from Etsy. Starting with your main fabric and your lining fabric, I'd say you need about a yard of your main and a half a yard of your lining. Cut out all your fabric pieces for your main and your lining. I'm using a pattern that I had from another dress that I bought on Etsy, and I'll link that below, but feel free to make your own if you know how to draft a pattern. The ties on my original pattern were really long, so they were made to be adjustable, so I'm shortening them by a couple inches and I'm making 4 instead of 2 so they can tie at the shoulders. So cut out all your straps, and if you're using a fabric with a pattern on it like me, make sure it's all in the right direction. So I'm starting with the straps because I find that the most tedious part, and I'm just folding mine in half and sewing mine. I'm going to use the turn tube method. So after you've sewn down your strap with the right sides facing together, I like to get like a chopstick, or this is a skewer stick, and I poke the end in. And this part's kind of hard, so you poke the end in as much as you can. And it's a little bit of a struggle, but once you get it pretty far tucked in there, then I'm going to get my, I don't know what you call it, like elastic tweezery tool. And I'm going to feed it into the other end all the way down. Make sure your tool is open. So once you get it to the end where the tucked part is, where you meet the tuck part, then you want to pinch it and lock it, and then you can pull it all the way through to make your tube strap. Alright, so starting on the bodice part of our top, this pattern I'm using, it has nice little notches cut out to help guide you on what pieces meet together. It's also pretty cool because it's curved out in the chest, so it gives you a little bit more room in the boobs, if you know what I mean. So we're going to match those up, and you want your right sides facing together. I guess with the lining it doesn't matter so much, but when you sew your outside fabric, make sure it's right sides facing each other when you pin it, and then you're going to sew along the side edge. I'm using a 1cm seam allowance, but however you drafted your pattern, or if you're using this, just follow the guide. So just going to sew along the outside stitches, and you want to repeat this for your lining and your main fabric. And then just continue on to your back piece so we can assemble the whole bodice. And the same thing, right sides facing, pin them, and then just sew along the edge. Whoops, excuse me, I've lost a little bit of clothes, but it's 90-something degrees today and I'm burning up in here. Anyway, so right here you want to measure from where your bodice or your top piece ends and about to where you want it to fall. You're going to take that measurement and we're going to draft your flowy bottom piece. So right here, mine is about 9 inches. So when I cut mine out, I'm going to add 1.5 inches seam allowance. So for your bottom flowy piece, you want to take the measurement of the circumference around the bottom of your bodice, mine was 31, and multiply it by 2. That way you have lots of room to make gathering for the ruffle. So for your ruffle, if it's not long enough, just cut 2 more pieces and add them onto both ends. Then we did a basting stitch across the top, which is your longest stitch, and don't back stitch on either end. And we're going to pull 1 thread and just start pulling and working your fabric along the thread to make your ruffle for the bottom, and just keep doing this until it's the right length. I'll go ahead and speed that up for you, but here I am just working the ruffle down the thread, and once you feel like you've gone as far as you can on one thread, just pick up the other side and start working it into the middle from that side too. So once your ruffle's all bunched up, you want to pin it right sides facing again to the corresponding bodice piece. So obviously your ruffle's in your main piece, so pin it to your main fabric bodice piece. And sometimes you have to work with the thread a little bit to get it the same length, but just pin it end to end. So now that those are pinned, we're going to sew them together. And seeing this video now, I realized I forgot to back stitch. But I guess that's okay because there's more sewing done on this part, but remember to backstitch. Do as they say, not as I do. So stay stitch this all the way down, connecting to your bodice. Make sure you overlock stitch or zigzag stitch the top of your ruffles where they meet so they don't fall apart and come off inside your shirt. Especially with cotton fabric, mine really frays a lot, so it's coming along. So now we're going to start connecting our pieces, and I'm pinning my lining piece and my main piece together, right sides facing, and this is also where you're going to add in your straps. So your straps go facing down, pointing down between the two layers, and pin them in, and I like to leave a little bit of end poking out because they're usually frayed by now. And I'm going to go over and overlock all of this too, so to make sure I get them in there so they won't fray and fall apart. So here you can see what I'm talking about. I zigzag stitched along the edge and cut off the little nubs so everything is clean and secure together. So here I folded everything right sides out, like it would be when you're wearing it, and I'm just going to go ahead and press it so everything looks right and stays in place as I start sewing it down securely. And pressing your things you're sewing is super important. It makes everything way easier. Also, you should be doing this as you go along, like pressing your seams open. If you sewed darts into your bodice piece, which I left out because I just don't feel like I need them like I did when I was using this for a dress. But if you make darts, you want to also press those down and just make sure everything is going, you know, the correct direction as you're sewing along. Right here, I'm taking the bottom of the lining and just folding it up about a 1/2 inch. And I'm going to pin it underneath. Hopefully this works, we'll see. Actually, not sure. Let me do this way. I went ahead and pressed all of this, folded under. What I'm going to do is pin it along this ruffle part from end to end. But I'm going to pin it on the other side because I'm going to sew it from the top in the seam to have a stay stitch. So that way your lining isn't moving around when you're wearing it. Now that that's all pinned, I'm going to do a stay stitch and try to get it right along here in this little seam, so everything doesn't move around. And I use a lot of pins because I hate when I miss the back of things, so hopefully this works. So this is a finished product on the inside. It's not exactly the neatest, but I'd say it's a success. From the outside, you barely see it, very close to the edge, so you don't really notice it, but like I said, it'll help hold that into place. Next, I'm going to zigzag stitch, or you can overlock stitch if you have an overlocker, the edges right here before I add on my zipper again, so nothing frays and it doesn't fall off when I'm wearing it. Alright, so next I'm going to sew in the zipper, and I'm doing that by, I got my zipper, I'm not even sure what size this is. I'm sure you could probably use like a 6-inch one, but this is all I had right now. So I just go from where the zipper starts, and then I measure down to where the bottom of the zipper is, and then I just marked a pin there. And then so first I'm going to sew the bottom down here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then I'm going to insert the zipper after. So just sew the bottom where the zipper isn't first. Once you stitch the bottom, you want to go ahead and open this up, and then just press this all open, and then continue with the 1/2 inch on both sides and press all of this open as well. Now that that's pressed, I'm gonna go ahead and turn my shirt right side out. And that just makes putting in your zipper like a million times easier. I used to not be a fan of ironing, but the more I sew, the more I realize ironing is a game changer and it makes everything in your life easier. So just don't be lazy and do it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pin my zipper in. So I switched to my zipper foot and I'm sewing the zipper in right now. And I also want to note that I put a bigger needle on for this because I was using a pretty thin one before and I probably would have made it, but I've broken enough needles off of my face to not want to chance it. So maybe try a thicker needle just for the zipper part. Whoops, I had a little problem with the video of the finished zipper, but it's in and it's working. So now all that's left is to just double roll your bottom and just hem around to complete your shirt. Now here I am in all my glory wearing my new top and striking some poses. Yeah. Laters.